for me because I've never gone live on YouTube before, but I thought I'd see what's going on. So I am a hormone expert, and the recipes I'm going to be cooking tonight and for any time I come on here are going to be good for hormones, and I'll talk about that later. But I want to go ahead and get started on the actual cooking so that while it's in the oven, we can chat. If you have questions, I don't know how this works. Hopefully, if you have a question, somebody can send me a question. But so what we're looking at, oh, I need a light in here too, I see. So we have, this is Greek chicken burgers. We have a half a cup of red onion. I'm not sure I'm going to use this whole half a cup, and I already cut it up, and we'll talk about how you deal with onions in a little bit here. 4 cups baby spinach, and I'll put this in the list too when we're done. A cup of coconut flour, 1 pound ground chicken, and a quarter cup of black olives. So this is what it's going to be, right? So what we're going to do right now is put all of this in here together and stir it up. So I like to stir each ingredient as I put it in at a time. Now I will tell you, some people when they're cooking this meal will actually want to cook the vegetables first, like cook them before they put them in the burgers. But the more you cook a vegetable, the more you lose its nutrients. So I find that if I'm putting it in the oven, it's not really a big deal. I'll just put in there what I need, and we'll go from there. So these will just have little pieces of spinach poked out, which I don't care. I make another dish too called egg roll meatballs, and I put coleslaw in it for the cabbage, and it looks like all these things poking out on it too, so that's kind of fun. All right, so we're going to get this squished up. Now, I've got some gloves I'm going to be using in a minute. And we're going to put the flour in there. I'm not sure how much flour I'm going to use either, so I'm kind of just... once you have been cooking for a while, you'll be able to do things like this and kind of go off the recipe and not stick with it. But usually for the beginning, you need to probably use recipes. So, interestingly, I am 53 years old, and I did not start cooking until I was about late 30s, early 40s. My whole life, my parents made fun of me for not cooking. My dad was an amazing cook, so I figured what was the point, right? If he was going to cook all the time, I didn't need to, kind of thing. And I just didn't enjoy it. I was suffering, I now know, from blood sugar issues. And so it would make me hangry, and I would just have to get in there and eat. I didn't have time, I didn't think, to like really get in there and start cooking. Does that make sense? But then a lot of changes in my life happened in my late 30s, early 40s, and health and personal. And I decided, you know what? It's time to either, cook or not cook. Either get healthy or not. And I knew to get healthy, I had to cook. So that's how I started. And basically, I've had some bad meals. Some things have not turned out well. But that's kind of how cooking is. You kind of have to just start, look at the recipes, and go with it. So this is a pound of chicken, like I said. And I like to make... basically quarter pounders. They never turn out as like I want it. One's always smaller than the other, but that's kind of what I like to do, is just make them into like big burgers. This one's probably gonna be a little too big. So, and you see I'm just using these so I don't get it under my fingernails. I don't like food under my fingernails. All right, so here's my first burger. Now I'm putting it on a pan, a baking pan, that has recycled parchment paper, which I'll show you when we get this in the oven. I'll show you what that looks like. But it just keeps the pan a little bit cleaner. You don't have to worry about cleaning it as much. And that's because that's always a problem. I look for, particularly for week recipes during the week, I look for things that aren't going to take me more than 30 minutes to cook. I'm sure y'all are like that too. Nobody wants to be in the kitchen after work one day. So I'm always looking for ways to make things quicker and easier. And I saw this recipe for Greek burgers, and I was like really excited because I'm a Greek salad fan. So I guess I should tell y'all who I am. I am Angel, Dr. Angel. I am a traditional naturopath. I have been in practice for about 14 years in the Pensacola, Florida area, right outside of it in Milton, Florida. And I am taking my business online now because I want to help more people. So in that business, though, that traditional naturopath business, I worked with anybody who came in the door. Anybody who wanted an assessment got one. So I've worked with about 7,000 different people during that time frame of 14 years. And what I really learned is that through my own experience and the women that sat in front of me, and men too, but mainly women, there was a lot of hormone issues out there. And so when I decided to go online, I decided that was going to be my niche, right? I was going to work with women with hormone issues. I've actually worked with a few men too. So in my practice at the store, definitely a lot of men with hormone issues. It's been successful, but my business is more geared towards women. So anyway, it's just a natural way of doing things, traditional naturopathy, instead of using like prescriptions or something. We just look for other ways. Food is always my first option. So I have got these set into burgers. They're about 1/4 pound each, and I'm gonna put them in the oven for 20 minutes, and we're gonna chat. Next time I'll bring another light here. Maybe that'll help. Anyway, so again, I want to tell you what was in the recipe. By the way, the reason this is a good hormone recipe is it has 20 grams of protein, and the carbs in it are really good carbs. Like onions are good carbs. Oh, hold on a second. Alexa, set a 20-minute oven timer. If you don't have an Alexa, go ahead. Alexa, tell me about my timer. Alexa, tell me about my timer.
You have 19 minutes left on your oven timer.
If you don't have an assistant like that to do that, there are apps you can get on your phone, and they literally show like the oven and all the things on your, like the 4 burners on your stove, so you can actually time them that way. That's what I used to do, but then when I got her, it's easier for me just to do things. So I'll either name it with the, like chicken burgers, I could have called it that, but I knew only one thing was going in the oven. Now, when I talk about hormone balance, one of the big things I talk about is protein. You need to get protein at every meal, and I want you to get between 15 and 30 grams of protein at every meal. And this meal has 20 grams in it, okay? So one of those burgers is 20 grams of protein. So I can put something else with it if I want. When we're done, I'll show you what I'm going to put it on. But the recipe, just so we know that before we get into other things, and I'll put this in the notes below. But it's a 1/2 cup of red onion chopped up, and I'll tell you how I did that in just a second. Some spinach, 1 cup of coconut flour, 1 pound of ground chicken, and a 1/4 cup of black olives that I chopped up. I just threw them all together without cooking anything in that bowl. Put them, you saw me chopping them up or patting them down, and we put them in the oven for 20 minutes. That is an easy meal. You can put something really simple with it if you wanted to make it, to give more depth to it. So it's 400 degrees in the oven at 20 minutes. You could grill it if you wanted to. We have an air fryer. You could air fry. You could pan fry. I almost always choose oven, because I can go do other things while it's doing that. It's just one less thing that I have to worry about. If you're pan frying, you have to stand over it. Now the air fryer, you don't really have to stand over it, so it's kind of, I like to use it too. In fact, if you've ever cooked seafood in your air fryer, I highly recommend it, particularly salmon. So we're gonna have salmon next week, and I'm definitely putting it in the air fryer. Okay, so let me show you a little bit about different things that I do. So first off, this is my compost basket. These are recyclable, so that's why I use them. They come from that company, Go Macro. They make bars, you know, like protein bars. Anyway, they have recyclable packaging that they put them in. So I use that for composting. And then when I'm done, like once a day, I take this out to the compost that I have outside my house. And that's where we put that. Now, a lot of people talk to me, I'm out of the phone for a second here. A lot of people talk to me about they can't do onions because they can't cut them up. So I'm going to show you my handy dandy. These are my onion goggles. Uh-oh, I'm turning there we go. These are onion goggles. You can get these on Amazon. They're awesome, and they keep you from crying when you're cutting onions. So I love these things. They last forever. That's my second pair in like 15 years, so they last a really long time. So what else can I tell you about the, okay, so I use coconut flour. You could use really any kind of flour. I'm gluten-free, so I use coconut flour. I didn't use almond because almond, if you get too much almond in any way, it can cause kidney stones. So I have to worry about that. That's something my body likes to do. So, hold on a second. Alexa, stop music. This is the recycled parchment paper I was talking about that I put on top of that pan to help just keep it a little bit cleaner so you don't have as much stuff going on. And then I was going to show you 2 other things real quick here. So this is my handy dandy chopper. If you don't have one of these things, you need to go get it. You can actually change this out and make them smaller or bigger, the things you're chopping. This makes life so much easier. I highly recommend this. Now these don't last as long. I'm constantly getting new ones of these, probably every other year or so. They probably last about 2 years for me, and that's it. But I highly recommend this. This makes things really quicker. If you have kids, you can teach them how to use it. Now, probably not under 10. I don't know. My daughter's 20 something now, so it's hard for me to remember. But you want to make sure they're responsible because they can cut themselves. But it's much better than a knife. The other thing I wanted to show you was these are bamboo cutting boards. So really cool, you know, so cutting boards, we all worry about the plastic. And then with the wood ones, you have to do things to them and you have to clean them really well. But these bamboo ones are nice. They're dishwasher safe and they're just really, and you can recycle them afterwards. We could literally put them in the compost. It's crazy. I probably won't. I plan on using them until I can't use them anymore. But just some of the things I wanted to show of things that just make your life easier. And I say start with small, easy recipes and go from there. If you're somebody that's really trying to learn how to cook or you haven't done it much, because if you don't have a lot of time, you got to do things slowly. So let's see, what else can we talk about today? Alexa, how much time do we have left?
You have 14 minutes left on your oven timer.
14 minutes. I wish somebody was here so I could ask questions. So I am going to leave for just a second and I'm going to go grab, no, I'm not, because I think that thing's plugged in. I was going to grab something to help the light get better, but I don't think, let's see if we can do this. Does this help the light any? I don't think it does. All right. So when I talk about hormones, one of the biggest things I'm always talking about, in fact, we're going to walk over here while this is cooking. And let's sit right here and we can chat. So one of the things I like to talk about when I'm talking about balancing hormones, and I said earlier, was protein. If I could wave a magic wand, I would want people to have protein every morning for breakfast. Now, I said earlier, you know, do 15 to 30 grams of protein at every meal. I would love that. That is ideal. But especially in the mornings. So we wake up, we fasted all night, our blood sugar's already a little wonky. We need that protein in the morning to help us balance our blood sugars for the day, right? The other thing that's going on is our cortisol levels are supposed to go up in the morning, right? So our adrenals, they're on top of our kidneys, and they're basically our energy source in our body. And they produce cortisol, which is a hormone. And cortisol is what wakes us up in the morning, right? Well, the other thing about the adrenals that some people don't know is that they need more sodium than any other organ of the body, and they need it first thing in the morning. So we got these adrenals first thing in the morning that are wanting to put out cortisol so it can kick your butt out of bed. And then we want to keep that blood sugar balanced because we're going to be hangry all day if we don't. Now, if that cortisol isn't balanced though, then what happens is it's going to mess with the blood sugar. Cortisol is what we call a base hormone, right? So if cortisol is not balanced, nothing else is going to be balanced. So we're going to talk about cortisol for just a second because it's off on so many people. Number one reason, stress. So when you are stressed, your body goes crazy with the cortisol. The other thing that causes cortisol to pop out is inflammation. And a lot of us are eating inflammatory foods, right? Potato chips, sodas, all these things. Anything sugar is definitely going to be inflammatory. So we got these inflammatory foods coming at us. We got all this stress, and our body tries to produce cortisol because cortisol is what taps down that inflammation. And eventually your body's like, I can't do this anymore. So then you're literally zapped. You have no cortisol. So let's hope you're not there. But what we want to do is get that cortisol going in the morning. So one of the things I like to do is I talk to people about doing adrenal cocktails, but I like adrenal cocktails differently than other people do. So most people like orange juice or some sort of juice with their adrenal cocktail because they say they need vitamin C in it. Well, I think you're probably getting enough vitamin C. People aren't walking around with rickets, so I'm not too worried about that. But that orange juice, anytime you drink juice, it's popping your blood sugar up. And if you're doing this first thing in the morning, you definitely don't want to be popping your blood sugar up. So I suggest that you do a cup of water or a cup of coconut water, particularly if you know you have potassium issues. So a cup of water or a cup of coconut water, 1/8 teaspoon of real salt. Now, when I say real salt, I'm talking about salt that has minerals in it. This stripped down salt you get at the grocery store most of the time is just crap, doesn't have any minerals in it. So you're looking for things like the name, real salt, Celtic salt. I prefer real salt because it comes from Utah, so I know where it's coming from. And it's really good. I also like cracked salt too. If you can get some like real salt, cracked salt, I like to do that on top of dishes as well. But by doing that in the morning, and if you want, you could throw in like a half a lemon juice. So 1 cup of water, 1 cup of coconut water, depending on what you want to do, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, and a half a lemon juice. The lemon is going to help clear out your liver. And it is going to help your pH stay balanced so that you're not too acidic or too alkaline. Either way we go is not good for us. We want to stay one or the other. You want to stay in the middle of that, like 7.0 is I think what we're looking at for pH. So you're getting that coconut water in for the potassium, you're getting the salt in for that sodium, and then the lemon juice. That is going to help get those adrenals going in the morning. Now, if that doesn't do it for you, if your adrenals are farther gone than that, there's always supplements you can take. And typically what's nice about supplements is that you only have to take them about a month, 1 bottle, not a year. So that's good. It's usually people feel better in about a first week. But if you're just trying to like keep your energy levels balanced, or you're trying to see, hey, is this something simple I can do without having to go on a supplement, that's what you should do, is try those adrenal cocktails. And then the second hormone that needs to be balanced, so we talked about cortisol, it's the base hormone, it's got to be balanced first before anything else. The second hormone is insulin. Now, we all go, oh, I'm not diabetic, my doctor says I'm not diabetic. Well, are you insulin resistant? That is very different. So years ago, probably almost 18 years ago, I was diagnosed insulin resistant. They didn't say it much back then, but it was. I'm not anymore. I got rid of it. Yay, me. But the only way to truly know if you're insulin resistant is to check your fasting insulin level. It's not expensive. Doctors never do it. It's not something that's on their radar. So that's something I can do for you, or you can ask your doctor to do it. But when you do, their numbers are a little differently. So I'm looking at what makes you not insulin resistant. And basically, if you get this test done, fasting insulin, that means you're not eating before you get it done. It tells you if you're below 7 or below, you're good, right? You are not insulin resistant. However, if you are over 7, so 8 or above, which it goes all the way up to like 25, I think, for people, medical doctors, their range of all this. You're considered insulin resistant. And then at the top of that, you're considered not insulin resistant, but diabetic. So the goal is to stay not insulin resistant, because then your body is really working in a way that it can work. If it's insulin resistant, that means it's not using insulin. Your body is not using insulin the way it should, okay? That's not healthy. So we don't want that to happen. So how do you do that? Like I said before, you're going to do that protein, preferably at every meal. So this is one of those times, though, that you may have to put something in, but you may have to take something out. So the biggest problem I feel like to our sugar levels, our insulin levels, is liquid sugars. So think sodas, sweet tea, pre-workouts, all these kind of things. And by the way, we're going to talk about electrolytes in a second. You don't want any sugar in your electrolytes. But any of those sugars, liquid sugars, they immediately get in your body and start causing problems. Immediately. There is nothing good about liquid sugar. It makes us fat. It's all these different things. Even if it's not making you fat, it's literally killing you inside and you don't even know it. So that would be what I would say you need to start on first, is really look at some liquid sugars and figure out ways that you can reduce those. So for instance, my husband used to love sweet tea. So what he did, it took him a little while, but he started breaking it down. So it'd be like half and half. And then it'd be a quarter sweet and 3/4 not sweet, that kind of thing. So work on ways to get those liquid sugars down. Now, in the same vein of all this, besides doing adrenal cocktails, sometimes people will want to do electrolytes in the morning to help not only their cortisol from the adrenals, but really all their hormones, because electrolytes spark plug hormones. And so we want to spark plug those hormones, right? We all want our hormones working, men and women. But a lot of times with those electrolytes, they have a ton of sugar in them. So look at like Gatorade, all of them. A liquid IV, I think there's a ton of sugar in that. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure. So just check. if there's any sugar in it. You don't want that. We do not need liquid sugar first thing in the morning. You want to bump up those hormones with those electrolytes, but you don't need to do it with sugar. The other thing you want to make sure you don't have in your electrolytes is food coloring. Food coloring is terrible. So food coloring used to be made from coal tar, which is what we drive on. Now it's made from petroleum. It's all crap. The government has a thing called GRAS, generally recognized as safe. So it's like this acronym. So they've decided that coal tar is fine for us, or petroleum is fine for us to swallow. And so we can have food coloring. That is not good for us. We don't know if that's good or not. In fact, most countries in the world have outlawed it except for us. So we just stay away from the food coloring, okay? So no food coloring, no sugar, and those electrolytes to help spark your hormones without messing up the cortisol hormone or the insulin hormone. So first thing in the morning, you're going to either do an electrolyte or that water and salt. And then you're going to have a good 15 to 30 grams of protein in the morning for breakfast. Keep in mind, what I'm making right now, these chicken burgers, could be your breakfast. There is no reason why you have to have eggs and bacon or whatever for breakfast. Now, I love eggs and bacon, but you can eat it anytime. Breakfast is a marketing thing that happened a long time ago because they wanted to sell some stuff. So food can be eaten any time of day. If it's edible, you can eat it any time of day, all right? So these chicken burgers you could have for breakfast. We may do that tomorrow morning. I just don't know. And something else about these chicken burgers is we can add some feta to it at the end if you're a dairy person. I personally don't eat dairy, but I'm going to grab that right now. Hold on just a second so I don't forget it. All right, I'm back. So you may be asking yourself, we have cortisol as the base hormone, insulin is the next hormone. What's the next hormone after that? Well, it is thyroid. And thyroid is the tricky one. So many people are having thyroid issues these days. Probably food is doing it to us. There's no telling. But there's a lot of theories, I guess is what I should say. My personal recommendation is to always get a thorough thyroid check. So that means testing 7 of the thyroid components, not just 1 or 2 like your conventional doctor does. And then once you have those 7 components checked, then you want to have a functional doctor or an alternative doctor look at them from a functional lens to see if you are optimal in your thyroid. That is one of the biggest things you can do. Now, if you're somebody and you're like, I'm certain I have thyroid issues, you're not on medicine, you just think you have thyroid issues, you could eat 2 Brazil nuts a day. That gives you selenium. Your thyroid loves selenium. It sucks it up. So do something like that. Take 2 Brazil nuts a day, chew those, and you could turn that into something to be helpful for your thyroid. Now, a lot of people, unfortunately, need more than that. So that would be something you would be able to tell through that functional blood analysis. We can really look at your thyroid and tell. Another thing, if you have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune issue, that is one of the 2 components that you get checked when you do a full thyroid check, by the way. But Hashimoto's, you don't want to eat gluten. That is a real big one. So gluten actually looks like our thyroid when it's in the body, and it pops into those receptors. It pops into the thyroid receptors and keeps us from being able to have a good thyroid. So you really want to have that thyroid checked. Maybe eat some Brazil nuts, just 2 a day. You don't want to do more than that. You don't want to get too much selenium. And take care of it that way, or talk to somebody who's a medical, a functional or an alternative doctor to get that thyroid back where it needs to be. And then finally, the last hormone that you kind of be surprised about, it's not just one, but it's sex hormones. So people come to me all the time and they say, oh, my sex hormones are all messed up. You know what? It normally isn't. It's normally either the cortisol, the insulin, or the thyroid. Once we get those fixed, the sex hormones get better. Your periods get better, your libido gets better, all of those things get better. So it's really interesting to see how if we can fix those lower things, we can fix a lot of things. And just think about fertility. Like, you may not be wanting to get pregnant. That's not a problem. But we want fertility because that means our body is healthy. That's a vital sign when things are working well, when our periods are well, we're not having hot flashes, all these other things. So keep that in mind. You want to be able to be fertile, but not necessarily to have a baby. One of the interesting things, though, is if your thyroid is not working correctly, you can't get pregnant. If you're too stressed out and your cortisol is going on crazy, you can't get pregnant. If your blood sugar is all messed up, you can't get pregnant. And that is because your body thinks that you are not safe. And if you're not safe, then your body is not going to do anything that is going to be good, like having a baby. And so you want to give all the safety signals that you can to your body to make sure that it wants to work the way it's supposed to work. So safety signals are getting good night's sleep, going to bed with the dark and waking up with the dark. Now, you don't have to do it exactly like that, but I really think you need to be in bed by 10 o'clock at night. Our bodies start cleaning themselves out at night. And if you are not asleep around 10 o'clock, you're going to have things cleaning out that you can't get cleaned out. Does that make sense? Now, speaking of cleaning out, everyone should be going to the bathroom every day. And I'm talking about number 2, okay? You need to be going to the bathroom every day. If you're not, that is your number 1 health thing to do right now. When we do not go to the bathroom at least once a day, what is in our intestines leaks out and gets back into our body again. We don't want that. That is all waste. We do not want that. So if you're not going to the bathroom every day, you need to get a hold of me or someone. We need to find a way for you to go so that these other things can happen. So back to sleep. You want to sleep from about 10 p.m. to at least 4 a.m. Now, if you want it longer, obviously, that's fine. But you really want to be getting that sleep. You also want to get your eye receptors in the sun throughout the day. What does that mean? Well, we literally have receptors in our eye that tell us where we're at in our circadian rhythm. So our circadian rhythm just isn't at night. The circadian rhythm is what controls our sleep, but it also controls things during the day. And it needs to know where we're at. And if we are constantly inside, our brain, our eyes do not know where we're at in the cycle, the circadian cycle. So, oh, it moved. All right, it's here. So we're going to check. We're going to use a oven thermometer. That's a really good thing to have. Let me move all this stuff out of the way. And I'll tell you in just a second, we will continue talking about the eye receptors. Alexa, stop, please. So on those eyeball receptors, you want to do it first thing in the morning. So maybe while you're drinking your electrolyte, you go outside, look around, let those eyeballs. Then for bonus points, you want to go midday and nighttime, like right before bed. And you go out there and you look at the sun for a few minutes, and it's going to help you. I'm going to take off my glasses to get this out of the oven. It's going to help you sleep better. I mean, really, this is stuff that we can do for babies. If you have a baby that isn't sleeping, that is a wonderful thing to do. I do not think these are done, but I wanted you to see what's happening here. And I'll let you go in a second. So remember, go out in the sun with your electrolytes in the morning. It's really going to help you. Let's see. Oh, maybe they're done. They are. So when you're doing chicken, you want to look for 165 degrees when you're measuring it out. So 165 degrees internal temperature is what you want for these chicken patties. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to do when they're, here, let me grab this. This is what they look like. And when they cool off just a little bit, I'm actually going to have mine on a bed of lettuce. It's actually mixed greens. I love mixed greens. And so even though this has spinach in it, I just want some more greens. I love greens. And it's a good way to keep your blood sugar down. So when you do greens, that's helpful as well for blood sugar. So this was an experiment for me today. I hope it worked well. I hope you learned something. And leave some comments, and I'll go put the recipe in there. Thanks. I got to figure out how to get out of this thing now.